Did you know Elvis Presley once gave away a presidential to charity? Or that his yearly Christmas giveaway in Memphis sometimes topped $100,000 in a single afternoon? And get this, his connection to one world-famous Memphis hospital started before it even opened its doors, helping turn a promise into a place of hope. Elvis wasn't just the king of rock and roll. In Memphis, he was also a king of generosity, quietly making huge donations that changed lives across his hometown. Forget the flashy jumpsuits for a second and picture this: the world's biggest star using his fortune to help kids with cancer, support folks looking for work, and spread massive amounts of holiday cheer to those who needed it most right here in Memphis. These weren't just small gestures. They were major, ample acts of kindness woven into the fabric of the city he loved. Number 5. When Elvis became a champion for Memphians needing a hand up. Long before Graceland became the international tourist magnet it is today, Memphis was a city with its share of folks struggling to make ends meet, people looking for not just a handout but a hand up. Elvis, a man who shot from poverty in Tupelo and Lauderdale courts, public housing in Memphis to unimaginable wealth, never seemed to forget those roots. While his gifts of cars and cash to individuals are legendary, his support often extended to organizations dedicated to providing opportunities and support right here in his adopted hometown. One key area was helping people gain skills and find employment. Think about organizations like Goodwill Industries and the Memphis Sheltered Workshop. These places weren't just collecting old clothes. They were, and still are, focused on providing job, training, and employment opportunities, particularly for people with disabilities or other barriers to finding work. Elvis recognized the power of a steady job and the dignity that comes with it. While specific, massive, single-check donations to these exact organizations aren't as frequently documented with dollar figures as, say, his hospital support, his pattern of giving included these types of community-focused charities, especially during his famous Christmas charity drives. Sources and accounts from the time often mention a broad list of charities receiving funds, and organizations focused on vocational training and support for the disadvantaged were consistently part of the Memphis charitable landscape Elvis supported. It wasn't always about writing one giant check to one place. Sometimes it was about consistently including these vital community resources in his regular rounds of giving. He donated goods, too. Imagine truckloads of items, perhaps clothing he no longer wore, furniture, or other household goods from Graceland, being sent over to places like Goodwill. For an organization that relies on donations to stock its stores and fund its programs, receiving high-quality items potentially straight from the King's Castle was a significant boost. These donations weren't just about clearing out closets. They were tangible assets that could be sold to fund job training programs, pay wages for participants in sheltered workshops, and provide essential services to Memphians working hard to build better lives. Elvis's contributions helped fuel the engines of these organizations. It meant more resources for teaching skills, more opportunities for people to earn a paycheck, and more support for individuals striving for independence. In a very real way, Elvis's generosity helped provide the tools and pathways for fellow Memphians to find meaningful work and contribute to the community. It was a different kind of charity, less about immediate relief and more about long-term empowerment, helping people stand on their own 2 feet. His support underscored a belief in the potential of every Memphian contributing to the network of organizations that offered not just charity, but opportunity, right here in the heart of Memphis. This quiet, consistent support for organizations fostering self-sufficiency was a vital, if less headline-grabbing, part of his local philanthropy. Think about the ripple effect. A donation of goods meant revenue for goodwill. That revenue funded training programs. Those programs helped someone land a job. That job supported a family. It's a chain reaction of positive impact, and Elvis's contributions were a key link in that chain for many Memphians. He wasn't just giving to the community. He was investing in its people, helping them build skills and find work in the city they both called home. The sheer volume of items donated over the years, coupled with financial contributions during his annual giving, made a tangible difference to these organizations' ability to serve the Memphis community. It was a practical, down-to-earth form of generosity, reflecting his own understanding of the importance of work and opportunity. Number 4. Elvis didn't forget the other healers. His gifts to Memphis hospitals beyond St. Jude. Okay, everyone knows about Elvis and St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and we'll get to that epic story. But the king's generosity towards Memphis healthcare didn't stop there. Memphis is a city known for its medical center, a hub of healing long before St. Jude became a global name. Elvis, who relied on Memphis doctors and hospitals himself, particularly Baptist Memorial Hospital in his later years, understood the vital role these institutions played in the everyday lives of Memphians. His support extended beyond the Pediatric Cancer Center, reaching other crucial hospitals serving the broader community. Baptist Memorial Hospital, often referred to simply as Baptist, was a frequent recipient of Elvis's attention and care, both personally and philanthropically. While detailed records of every single donation aren't always, public accounts and reports over the years mention Elvis making contributions to Baptist Memorial. This could range from direct financial donations to support general operations or specific departments, to quieter gestures of support for the hospital's mission. Given his personal connection to the hospital, especially later in his life, when he spent considerable time there as a patient, it's natural that his philanthropic spirit would extend to supporting its work for the wider Memphis population. His presence alone brought attention, and his known generosity likely translated into tangible support for the institution that cared for him and countless other Memphians. Methodist Hospital, another cornerstone of the Memphis medical community, also benefited from the king's charitable reach. Like Baptist, Methodist served and serves a vast number of patients from all walks of life in the Memphis area. Elvis's pattern of giving, particularly during his large annual Christmas charity distributions, often included a wide array of local institutions. It's highly probable that major Memphis hospitals, like Methodist, were included in these rounds of giving. Supporting these hospitals meant supporting the infrastructure that provided critical care, emergency services, and routine medical treatment for the entire city. It was an investment in the health and well-being of his neighbors. Think about what these donations meant. Hospitals constantly need funding for new equipment, facility upgrades, research, initiatives, even outside specialized centers like St. Jude, and simply covering the costs of care for those unable to pay. A significant donation from someone like Elvis could help purchase a vital piece of diagnostic machinery, renovate a patient wing, or support a community health program run by the hospital. It eased the financial burden and allowed these institutions to better serve everyone in Memphis. His support wasn't just about the glamour of celebrity, it was about addressing the fundamental need for quality healthcare access in his community. While the specific dollar amounts and frequencies might be less documented than the St. Jude connection, the pattern is clear. Elvis Presley's charitable activities in Memphis included support for the city's major general hospitals. He recognized their importance as pillars of the community, providing essential care day in and day out. His contributions, whether through direct donations, participation in hospital-related events, if any, or inclusion in his yearly charity lists, helped bolster the healthcare safety net for all Memphians. It showed an understanding that a healthy city needs strong hospitals, and he used his resources to contribute to that strength, ensuring his generosity touched the lives of patients across the spectrum of Memphis healthcare, not just in one specialized area. This broader support painted a picture of a benefactor deeply invested in the overall health of his chosen hometown. Number 3. Elvis's epic yearly Christmas giveaway that lit up Memphis charities. Christmas at Graceland wasn't just about elaborate decorations and family gatherings for Elvis. It was a major event on the Memphis charity calendar. Every year, typically in the days leading up to Christmas, Elvis orchestrated a massive giveaway, donating huge sums of money to a long list of Memphis area charities. This wasn't just a couple of checks. It was a carefully organized operation, often overseen by his father, Vernon Presley, that distributed serious cash to dozens of organizations doing vital work in the city. Picture this: Vernon Presley, sometimes alongside Elvis himself, sitting down with lists of local charities. These weren't just the big, well-known names. The lists often included smaller community groups, churches providing social services, organizations helping the poor, the elderly, the sick, and the disadvantaged across Memphis. Elvis would personally review the lists and approve the donations. Then came the checks, dozens of them, often for significant amounts. Reports from the time, like those in the Memphis Press, Scimitar, or the Commercial Appeal newspapers, frequently covered these annual events, highlighting the sheer scale of the giving. In some years, the total amount given away during this Christmas blitz reportedly exceeded $100,000. And remember, this was back in the 1960s and 1970s. That amount of money, equivalent to many times more today, was a staggering infusion of funds for these local charities. We're talking about maybe 50 or more different organizations receiving checks ranging from several hundred to several $1,000s each, depending on the charity's size and needs. Think about the impact for a small community center struggling to keep the lights on, or a food pantry needing to stock its shelves before the holidays. Receiving an unexpected check for $1,000 or $5,000 from Elvis Presley was like a Christmas miracle. The list of recipients was diverse, reflecting a broad concern for the community's needs. It often included organizations like the Salvation Army, Goodwill Industries, the Memphis Union Mission, Serving the Homeless, Volunteers of America, various orphanages or children's homes, organizations supporting the visually impaired or those with disabilities, local churches engaged in outreach, and many others. It was a city-wide gesture of goodwill, timed for the holiday season when needs are often most acute and resources most stretched. The process itself became something of a Memphis tradition. Representatives from the chosen charities would sometimes be invited to Graceland or Elvis's offices to receive the checks personally. Imagine the excitement and gratitude of those individuals getting a direct boost for their work from the world's biggest star. Newspapers would often publish lists of the recipient organizations, touting the breadth of Elvis's local philanthropy and letting Memphians see how his generosity was touching different corners of the community. This annual Christmas giveaway wasn't just about fulfilling a sense of obligation. Accounts suggest Elvis genuinely enjoyed this aspect of his success, finding real satisfaction in being able to share his fortune, especially during the holiday season in his hometown. It became a reliable source of support that many Memphis charities likely came to count on. It demonstrated a consistent, large-scale commitment to the well-being of Memphis year after year. This wasn't a one-off publicity stunt. It was a sustained effort that provided critical operating funds, program support, and holiday cheer to countless Memphians through the organizations dedicated to serving them. It cemented Elvis's reputation in Memphis not just as a star, but as a vital community benefactor, especially when Christmas rolled around. The sheer scale and regularity of this annual event make it one of his most significant and apolitical charitable traditions in the city. Number 2. The time Elvis's yacht became a lifeline for a Memphis hospital. This story sounds almost too wild to be true, but it's a documented fact and one of the most unique major donations Elvis ever made, and it directly benefited a Memphis institution, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. The item in question? Not just any boat, but the USS Potomac, a 165-foot vessel that had once served as President Franklin D. Roosevelt's presidential yacht, the Floating White House. Here's how it unfolded. Elvis bought the Potomac in 1964. It had passed through a few hands after its presidential service and was in need of restoration. Elvis reportedly spent a considerable amount fixing it up. His initial plan wasn't necessarily to keep it forever. Being the generous person he was, he first tried to donate the historic vessel. He offered it to the U.S. Coast Guard for use as a training ship, but they declined, likely due to the high operating and maintenance costs. He then offered it to the March of Dimes charity, thinking it could be used for fundraising or as a historical attraction. They, too, reportedly couldn't take on the financial burden of the yacht's upkeep. Elvis was stuck with a very famous, very large, and very expensive boat. What did he do? He turned to his friend, Danny Thomas, the founder of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis. Elvis was already a known supporter of Danny's dream hospital. More on that soon, which was still relatively young at the time. Having opened its doors in 1962, St. Jude was constantly fundraising to cover its pioneering promise that no child would ever be turned away due to their family's inability to pay for treatment. So Elvis made an incredible offer. He donated the USS Potomac directly to St. Jude. Think about that. Giving away a former presidential yacht. Danny Thomas gratefully accepted the unique and valuable gift on behalf of the hospital. Now, St. Jude wasn't about to start running yacht tours or using it as a floating clinic. The hospital's mission was clear: research and treatment for catastrophic childhood diseases. The value of the Potomac was in its potential resale value. St. Jude subsequently sold the yacht. The exact amount raised from the sale isn't always consistently reported, but it was a significant sum, money that went directly into the hospital's coffers. Those funds were then used to support the core mission of St. Jude, paying for groundbreaking research into diseases like leukemia, funding the expensive treatments for sick children, covering the costs of housing and travel for families who came to Memphis from all over the world, and generally helping to keep the hospital's promise alive. This donation was remarkable for several reasons. First, the sheer uniqueness of the item, a historic presidential yacht. Second, it showed Elvis's creative approach to giving. When cash wasn't the only option, he leveraged a major asset. Third, it provided a substantial, tangible boost to St. Jude during its critical early years. The funds generated from the sale of the Potomac were a direct lifeline, helping the Memphis-based hospital continue its life-saving work. It wasn't just a boat, it was converted into hope, research, and care for children battling devastating illnesses right there in Memphis. This single extraordinary act of donating the Potomac stands as one of the most memorable and idle contributions Elvis made to a Memphis charity, turning a piece of floating history into vital resources for healing. Number 1. The jaw-dropping story of how Elvis helped build a Memphis miracle. St. Jude. There is no single charitable cause more deeply intertwined with Elvis Presley's legacy in Memphis than St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. His support wasn't just a one-time thing. It was sustained, atoll, and started remarkably early, even before the hospital fully existed, playing a role in helping entertainer Danny Thomas realize his audacious dream right here in Memphis. The story begins with Danny Thomas, a struggling entertainer who, down on his luck, prayed to St. Jude Thaddeus, the patron saint of hopeless causes. He promised that if the saint helped him find his way, he would one day build a shrine in his name. Danny's career took off, and he never forgot his promise. His vision was for a unique hospital dedicated to curing catastrophic diseases in children. A place where kids would be treated regardless of race, religion, or their family's ability to pay, a revolutionary concept at the time. He chose Memphis as the location partly due to its central location and the support he found there. Where does Elvis come in? Right from the early stages. Even before St. Jude opened its doors in 1962, Danny Thomas was tirelessly fundraising across the country. Elvis, already a global superstar with deep Memphis roots, was one of the first major celebrities to lend his name and support to Danny's cause. He attended early fundraising events and planning meetings held in Memphis, helping to generate buzz and credibility for the ambitious project. His involvement sent a powerful message. The biggest star in the world believed in this dream for Memphis. Elvis was officially named one of St. Jude's earliest and most prominent supporters. His belief in the mission was genuine. He reportedly told Danny Thomas, quote, "No child should die in the dawn of life." This shared conviction forged a strong bond between the two entertainers. Elvis didn't just lend his name, he put his energy and resources behind it. One of the most visible forms of support was through benefit performances, although it's important to note many of his largest specific benefit concerts happened outside Memphis. Like shows in Las Vegas or the Houston Astrodome that raised funds for various charities, including sometimes St. Jude. However, his connection to the Memphis institution was the driving force. The donation of the USS Potomac yacht, as we just discussed, number 2, was a massive, direct contribution to the Memphis Hospital's funding during its crucial early years. That single act brought in substantial resources. Beyond these major gestures, Elvis made numerous personal donations to St. Jude throughout his life. He often visited the hospital quietly, without fanfare, spending time with the young patients. Imagine being a sick child, far from home, and suddenly having Elvis Presley walk into your room to offer encouragement and a smile. These visits, though perhaps not donations in the monetary sense, were invaluable gifts of time and spirit that lifted morale for patients, families, and staff alike. His annual Christmas charity gifts, number 3, also frequently included St. Jude on the list of recipients, providing consistent financial support over the years. Furthermore, Elvis allowed St. Jude to use his name and image for fundraising purposes, which was an incredibly valuable asset for the growing hospital. Having the endorsement of Elvis Presley opened doors and encouraged countless others to donate. The impact of Elvis's long-term commitment to St. Jude cannot be overstated. His early support helped build momentum and credibility when the hospital was just an idea. His financial contributions, including the unique yacht donation, provided vital operating funds. His personal visits brought joy and hope to the children. His ongoing support helped solidify St. Jude's Foundation in Memphis and contributed to its growth into the world-renowned institution it is today. Danny Thomas himself frequently and publicly expressed his deep gratitude for Elvis's unwavering friendship and generosity. Elvis Presley wasn't just a donor to St. Jude, he was a foundational supporter, a friend, and a champion who used his immense fame and fortune to help build a Memphis miracle that continues to save children's lives every single day. His legacy is etched not just in music history, but in the very walls of hope at St. Jude.